And welcome to another edition of the Best Three Podcast. I'm Alvin, that's Tori, and we're coming to you in this transitional space. I say it's the most wonderful time of the year, moving from hard court to clay court. What's going on the tour right now? Men are kind of all over the place, couple 250s. Women are in Charleston, 4 or 500. Next week, we got Monte Carlo and Stuttgart, I believe, respectively. So things are starting to ramp up. But so we're going to take this time to just kind of talk about what that looks like, kind of going from hard court to clay court, some of the things that I saw in person while I was in Charleston last week. I was in Charleston for a couple of days at the Women's 500, and talk a little bit about Iga and her new team and her new training vis-a-vis training base. But before we get into all that, TH, how you doing?
I'm good, Alvin. How are you? How's you've been doing that's two in a row right there. Miami and now Charleston. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm hoping that at some point there's some frequent flyer miles and there's some they need to have a passport for tennis tournaments visited. You know what I'm saying?
That'd be dope. That'd be dope.
You
know what it is? It's Novak Djokovic's win list is what it is. It's like this is all the tournaments that exist.
Right.
Since I've won them all, here they are.
I'm just saying that would be. I was just saying that's a lot. And good for you for putting in work.
It's not just work. I mean, it's a labor of love. Let's be honest. I love being on site at these tournaments, especially Charleston. It reminds me of like kind of my junior tennis days, right? It's a very chill facility, very different than the Miami Open. And we'll get into that a little bit later and some of the things that I saw, and maybe even show some of the things that I saw and kind of talk through that stuff. Sure. Where we are right now in this transition of the clay court, getting the clay court season up and rolling, I wanted to, I found that our listeners join us to become smarter tennis fans, right? I think that's a fair takeaway from the old Best of Three podcast, and we're going to deliver on that. I want to get into, from your standpoint, what are the things to be focusing on as we go from watching a lot of hardcore tennis and going into clay court tennis? Really kind of get into like the difference in the way that the players are trying to move, how they might switch up their tactics, and what kind of implications this has, the surface change actually has on some of the matchups that we've been accustomed to seeing, and why. So I want to start with the movement because I think it's the most important thing. So if you are, if you're working with a player and you guys have spent the better part of the last, since last summer, right, on hard court, because we went indoor, and then now finishing up the Sunshine Double, and now we're going on a clay court. How do you start preparing for that? How do you start getting the player accustomed to some of the changes that are related to movement when you go from hard to clay court?
Number one, I have to understand my player. Are they American? Are they?
What do you mean by that? Why do you bring that up?
Very, very simply, if I've got a player that's from South America, a player that's from Europe, a player that's from anywhere else that has played even a player from Florida is a little bit better than most players from from the rest of the states where they don't play a ton on clay. And just like a kid from Florida may not be as adept playing indoor bang, bang, boom tennis, because having not played much indoor, the same thing goes for that same kid from, say, Michigan, you know what I mean, from downtown Detroit, or I should say suburbs of Detroit.
Come on now.
Who will play in a very wet, a very slow clay court type of game. I have to understand who I'm dealing with. And let me say this, and I'll go back to the American part in a second. There's only so much you can do, right? There's Band-Aid, there's surgery, right? Going into the clay court season, a lot of time we're talking Band-Aid. We are getting through the clay court season. For us Americans and top juniors, we're getting through the clay court tournaments. In some cases, only a tournament or two, right? We're not talking about a season. We're talking about 1 or 2 events. So you're really just trying to go in there and, quite frankly, trying to maximize what you can do and that is what you normally do. Now we're talking about pro tour, so there's many more tournaments. It's probably roughly 2 months worth, 8 to 10 events, give or take, going into the French, right? So it's not a very quick ramp up per se. So you, as the American who hasn't had a ton of clay court experience, You're just trying to maximize, and you're trying, and you hope to give you early morning, hope to give you middle of the day matches where the clay's a little drier, and you can bang the ball a little bit, and it feels a little more normal. You hope it ain't freshly swept and freshly sprayed down, because that bad boy is a slow monster. And that's the thing with clay that I noticed a few years I was on the tour with some players, is it's so different from morning to afternoon to late, depending on when they've groomed the courts and the temperature. So, the Teraba 2 can be tricky, but do you have any prior experience? Do you move well? Do you change direction well? Are you lighting your feet by nature? Otherwise, again, Band-Aid or surgery, what you've done is what we're probably going to do here. We're just trying to make sure we kind of really understand how we can match up patterns to best maximize what we do. And let me start there, and then I'll let you ask whatever you want to ask.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I don't know what direction you want to take it, because the clay court is in itself Pandora's box, and I've seen a lot of coaches, yours truly included, that have tried to make a player move like a clay court player for the very short clay court season, and it takes years. I mean, at best, you're going to get a player to handle being redirected, or having a person go back behind him and handle certain things. And so I just think that whole clay court, I'm going to call it a clay court learning curve, is years long. It's not weeks long. It's not months long. It's years long. And so you're going to get better at it over time. And if you really do it right, you train on clay half the time during the week,
Right.
all year. And then you go to hard court for your tournament, and that way you're always learning. So by the time clay court comes around, it's not so foreign to you. And I know back in the day, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, shoot, maybe even 10 years ago for some players, it was all hard court, and you played on clay every once in a while when it rained, or you played on clay getting ready for clay court season. And that is recipe to be, that's recipe for disaster, because you know just enough to be dangerous, just enough to to twist an ankle out there, and think you know what you're doing.
So there is a difference, obviously, between hard and clay, but even within clay courts, there's a difference between American green clay and the actual true European red clay. I remember when I worked at a tennis academy in Central Texas, and we raised money to put in 2 clay courts, and raised a lot of money and actually put in red clay. So
Yep.
they flew it in from Europe. We had
Yep.
red clay, and it turned into a little stopover for, we would get a decent amount of tour players popping
Okay.
in
Sure.
before heading off to Europe for the clay court swing. But the point that you made about not only like regional differences here in the States, right, where you grow up playing tennis for American players, and then also there's only one clay court Grand Slam, right? We have one clay, we have one grass, we've got 2 on hard, right? So, and the season itself is a season for us fans. We're at home. There's lots of clay court tournaments from April 1 all the way through the end of the French Open, which ends like the first week of June. So we have 11 weeks, but really the players themselves are going to play at most 4 events, maybe 5 before they get to Roland Garros. So it is a pretty, and then the rest of the year they're not on clay, unless some of them are choosing to go play clay court events in South America or different parts of Europe, depending on their particular skill set, what they grew up on. But for the most of the time, it's not a clay court based tour. So being good on it has a limited return on investment, but there are a lot of tournaments in this space. You can, if you do well, you can rack up. So movement is one thing, right? And let's talk about that. So I was when I arrived in Charleston, get out to the practice courts kind of first thing in the morning, and I'm going out to watch Jessica Pegula and Madison Keys are practicing right next to each other, and I'm right there on the fence, right next to Jessie, and I'm watching her work, watching her move, and when we talk about sliding on clay, right? Everyone talks about sliding on clay, and it is a thing that one does on the surface. But there is a unique difference between sliding to stop and sliding into a ball, right? I'm going to let you explain those two and the differences, and how beneficial it is to be able to do the latter as opposed to just the former.
I will add to that, and there's choosing not to slide.
Mm,
So you can actually strike and be sure-footed enough to be and balanced enough to hit the ball clean without needing to. Um, a lot of players learn to slide, but they will be on the run. They'll hit the ball and they will slide 2 feet, sometimes 3 feet if they're really good sliders, past the ball, which actually puts them at a disadvantage. Why? Because they are now 3 feet and 1.5 seconds past the point of impact. And so now, unless your ball you hit had a crazy amount of spin, you are behind. You are behind time, you are behind court position, and you might even be off balance because by the time you come back into the mix, it's so easy to go behind you because you're now turning and running to the other side to catch up, leaving the space that you just left from wide open. And a good clay court player picked that up rather quickly. If you are sliding into the ball, you've had some experience on clay, you understand it. And so now you are sliding before the hit. And toward the end of your slide, you're making contact. And the best clay courts do that. They do that without even thinking. They've measured the slide. They know how much they need to slide. They're not sliding unnecessarily. It's a measured slide, no different than a lot of good kids in here in the States can slide on hard court. They will slide on the run ball, they will slide to run down the drop shot, they will run full speed to slide into the hard and before they reach the net, knowing that they'll slide a certain length of time. All of it is nuanced and they understand how far they're gonna go and what they need. But the same thing goes double, if not triple, on the clay. And then as I mentioned that last part about knowing not to slide, getting your feet set, being on top of the clay. You don't always have to slide. You can step in and crunch when you have the right kind of ball, but it certainly requires you having a very good feel for the bounce of the ball, a very good strike, so you can take that chance when you need to, because you don't get many of them, right? And often it's a game of patience. There's a point. There's within a point. There's 2 or 3 setups. There's several resets, and then there's the ability to say, okay, no, not yet, not yet. I don't have you exactly where I want you. You're not off balance enough for me to take this ball. And I don't want to get into an on the run rally with you just yet because I don't like that matchup right now for me, and I wanna pick apart that ball of yours when you're on the move going
right, right.
sideways or backwards or wide or short, and they know they're looking for that kind of ball. So you're gonna get a lot of the European, South American types that are very adept at building the point and building it multiple times, are very patient, they're very, um, tactical, and they're very, some would even say surgical with the way that they do that. So that all is under movement because at some point, if your movement ain't there, it's gonna break down, right? And so that's where I think you start to notice that sliding too far, not sliding unbalanced enough, again, just not having your slide in sync with your strokes and with your tactics.
And I'm going to break that down just a little bit. So for those who are, watching clay court tennis at home, and you can kind of visualize this when you're watching tournaments, let's say there's a forehand hit out to the deuce corner. Player on hard would run, 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 plant the right leg, hit the ball, right? Boom, hip through, return. A player who is less adept on clay might run, 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 hit that ball, take another step, slide, stop, and then start their return back to the middle, right? A player who is well versed on clay, exactly, will run, 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 start their slide as they approach that corner, hit the ball, and almost come to a complete stop and change direction as they're finishing the stroke. So it's almost like their movement almost mimics what they would be doing on a hard court, but they're factoring in the surface underneath me is moving part. Okay,
And have 2 or 3 bunny hops, split steps in between ready for the next ball
right.
so that they're ready.
So they're
And
on
that
they're
to
on
me
time when they get
so
back.
they're on time for the next one and getting the best jump on it to do it again.
It was interesting for me to see as I'm watching the women, their first competitive action on clay court, because we just finished our hardcore season, how many of them do and versus do not slide into balls. I'll use Jessica as an example, even though Jessica grew up in the Florida area. Did she move down from Hilton Head? Or no, she was Hilton Head, right? She was at That's Stearns, I believe.
Buffalo originally, obviously.
Sure, yeah. Well,
Don't
yeah, I think
forget
that makes a
let's
lot of
play
sense.
in Buffalo.
But a lot of
Right.
hit, run through,
Sure.
slight slide, still getting her feet underneath her. Maybe we'll see as this progresses.
And was a harder hitter, sorry. Was a harder hitter, driver, not a heavier, buy time and put the ball up out of the strike zone kind of a play. Even when she was younger. I remember when Jess was probably 11 or 12. With my boy, shout out to my boy Adam Gusky, who was working with her even at a young age. There was a lot of, she drove the ball. She still drives the ball quite well, by the way. I say that to say, just to add to your point, the type of ball she was hitting, you know what I mean? It wasn't a style that would have allowed her to, to really build or develop a lot of long points, you know what I mean? Let alone move well on the clay from time to time and to get redirected a lot. She wasn't in the rally that long.
No, and she's also I want to play from the middle out, use leverage, hug the baseline. That does not scream a lot of open stance. Like, she doesn't really open stance by default. She tends to want to close that stance up. Someone like Madison Keys, shockingly enough, moves
Pretty
very
complicated.
well on the
Yeah.
clay. Like, Madison slides into balls, really gets out, like, leverage on the outsides of her legs on both forehand and backhand side. And for someone
And for
who
being
is
6 feet tall, right?
for being 6 feet tall and known as a power player, she actually hits a very, like, obviously her forehand is big, but she also hits it with
Good
enough
shape.
good shape, yeah, to where she handles herself on clay like she looks like it's native, and she is a South Florida girl as well. So that's another, I think she's from Florida. She is from Florida, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those kind of like the two.
But played a lot in Florida, I think.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then someone like Iga Jovic, I got a chance to watch her practice for a good bit and chatted with her father for a little bit. And we'll get to her in a little bit, but moves quite well on the clay, even though she's from
He's a good
California.
mover, right?
She's a good mover. Athletes adapt.
Well, athletes, champions adjust, athletes adapt. So that's what I was saying back to and that was my last piece I was going to mention about who do I have? Who are we talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Are they a good mover by nature, right? Because the good mover is going to understand how to move and how to handle, the footwork needed for that to find that rhythm and that groove. A quick side out, but it's very similar, ironically, talking about Yannick Sinner and grass court. And I told you on this podcast, I said he hasn't yet, this is maybe last year, he hasn't yet figured out how to move on the grass. He slides well on hard court, he slides well on, I said, when he learns how to understand a little bit of a slide on the grass, I said, Yannick Sinner is going to be dangerous. This past year, he's learned how to slide, he's learned how to move on the grass court. To my point, a good mover, right? Will
Yeah.
adjust. He will
Yep.
adapt, or she will adapt. And so I don't think it'll take Eva long to really master that and get much better at it. She seems like a little more of a hardcore player the way she strikes the ball, much like a Jessica Pegula, kind of has that kind of a clean ball, but she moves very, very well, very unbalanced, very even on either side. She takes step ins, step outs, step backs, step ups, all very well on both sides. She's just very measured, very clean. You rarely see her out of balance and out of position. So that, as I say, it won't take her long.
Yep. And then, kind of looking at the types of players who typically do well on clay. Those who like to play on the front foot, and I'm meaning those who have a preference to squaring off their stances. Again, similar to Jessica wanting to play from the middle out. Don't typically do as well because a lot of points on clay courts, especially at the pro level, end up being played in the outer thirds. There's a lot of lateral movement involved here. So my kind of like quick back of the napkin, not math, but rule of thumb is like, think about the players that you see hit open stance forehands, like true open stance forehands, go outside foot, swivel to inside foot, and do it with competency. Those are typically the ones that translate well to clay court. Obviously, like Iga is a prime example. Arena, as big as she hits it, like Arena hits the open stance very, very well. Obviously, she dominates on the front foot, but that's just because she hits the crap out of the ball. But when you get her moving out laterally, she sticks that right leg down, swivels those hips. And then again, Waikoko generally does so well on clay. Like her default is almost hitting open stance, and it's
Exactly.
Yeah, it's kind
And
of
the
it's
clay
built for that.
gives her just enough extra time where she's on time, even though she was late. and her speed gets her there. So she gets there, and I saw it a bunch of times in last year's French. She gets there, almost surprised herself that she got there so early. She's able to do more to the ball than she thought, and more than you thought, because A, she's fast, and B, she's, she can move well on the clay, and upgrades her shot where most players get there and have to downgrade the shot because what they thought they had upon arrival, they no longer have. And I think Coco was the flip. She might actually be better on the clay as she gets there and has a little more time, can actually slide into the ball and, oh, hey, wait a second. I can go hard line here. I didn't realize I was going to get there that well. And I think that's one of the beauties of Coco's game is her athleticism and balance is so good that she's able to hurt you where she wouldn't necessarily hurt you as much on that same ball. She looked to reset, bring you back to her backhand. On clay, she has a few more options to go, and she doesn't mind which way you run her because she's good either way.
Let's continue on that path a little bit because I want to talk about like how the surface change has different implications on certain matchups. So we just saw Arena against Coco on hard court in the final in Miami. Obviously, we saw them in the final French Open in last year. How does that matchup change when we're on hard court versus clay court?
The easiest way for me to explain it, hard court is taking away time. Clay court is taking away space or adding space or time. On a hard court, Arena Sabalenka can take away time. She has a big serve. She has big returns. She hits the ball beautifully well, and she will take away minimum 0.2 of a second per shot, up to half a second on any random ball. Okay? That's if you're stepping in and trying to go toe-to-toe with her. If you somehow cough up a ball short, you're adding a little bit of time in the loft and the flight of your ball. She moves up to take said ball, either step up, out of the air, or can even volley with the best of them. She will now take a full second and some change. And before long, you, the opponent, simply run out of time. Okay? Hard court, taking away time. And Arena is one of the best at it. Clay court. Okay? Now we need to take away court. We have to go, and you mentioned it earlier, I thought it was a great visual for those of us that have played, those of us who may not understand as well. If you divide the court up into thirds, right? The singles court is 27 feet wide. You got 9 feet thirds in that court, right? In that sense of things. So you've got your middle third, you got your 2 outer thirds, as you spoke to. Sometimes if that ball's just on the inside of what we're going to call middle cross, and you've recovered a little bit back toward the center, and I'm able to get that ball back to the outer third, well, now I've got a decision to make because I'm the person receiving this outer third ball. I can go open stance, and I can tag it, but I got to be able to handle the court that I just opened up to my right side. I can shape it, but I risk it. It may give you a step up. And again, depending on who I'm playing, and of course, who I am, having this ball or not, I have to now make a risk or play a very, very routine ball that I don't think you can hurt me back with. And then we'll do it again. Let's say I roll the ball. Okay? I roll the ball line. I can get away with that on clay because I have more time to do so. The ball's going to not only bounce higher on the clay, it's going to take longer to get there. And when you get there, you're not going to have sure footing. So you won't hurt me as often as you would have had it been hard court. We have very sure footing. You can take the gamble to cut the ball off. If I go back hard cross, I get redirected, and now I have to run my very same ball that got redirected. I got to run it down from my far left ad side to a running down on the deuce and do some Herculean effort to get on the run. And the clay court player knows, okay, step 1. Get player on run. As that person's on the run, can opener slice, buggy whip forehand, doesn't matter. I'm hustling back to get back. Step 2, go behind player. And now they got you in the clay court matrix right now. You have no idea what you're doing. You don't run it down, they go open court. You head open court, they go behind you. You back up to buy time, they drop shot. And before you know it, the space becomes such a major piece that you have to constantly protect turf. And the player that likes to take away time finds themselves backing up more, running more, almost from the front back, And the player that started a little further back with good shape can eventually start doing Space Invaders and kind of coming forward. So that's the biggest difference to me. And the tactics are completely flipped on their head, because what will be a good tactic, taking the ball early, it doesn't always end up being the best tactic, especially if you don't have the goods, because you're actually taking away time, but you should be taking away court. And that's a segue that makes Iga Świątek such a phenomenal player on clay, because she can take away your court and take away your time, which is
Hits
why
it big enough. Yeah.
she has such a good clay court record, right? And has so many Grand Slams on at the French. So that's what's so amazing about her. And I think that when we always talk about this, we got to understand that the top of the game, they combine 2 or 3 or more things that most players only do well with one. They do well with 2 or 3. So when you talk about them, you have to just understand they are, by definition, exceptions, because they have several. They don't have just one, and that's why they are who they are.
Right. Yeah. No, that's very well put. I appreciate you walking us through that one. It's the same game, but it's a whole different ball game. And I'm gonna kind of take that a little bit and transition into some of the things that I saw in Charleston while I was there. You have to take it with a grain of salt, because these women are just getting their feet literally on the dirt. Some of them coming maybe a week prior, have been training since they've been out of Miami. Maybe you lose week 1. I think Jessica lost in probably like the quarters or something like that to Rebecca. So that means she maybe had a week on the clay.
Another few. They had 3 or 4 more days.
Yeah.
If I can add one more thing before you go forward.
Please do.
There is a difference, going back on that previous thought about the movers. There's a difference with players that have history on clay, that are finding their feel and groove on the clay, and players that have yet to find said groove on the clay, that are trying to get better on the clay. And they're just trying to put in time to pay it forward. If I grew up on clay, I can probably find my feel on the clay coming from hard court within about 15 to 20 minutes. It's not very difficult for me. I grew up on it. I know it. My day-to-day tennis can vary a little bit, as it will with any player, but I'm pretty comfortable on the clay. It won't take me, I don't have to reintroduce myself to the clay. I have a little spoonful of clay with my coffee every day. I know how.
It's almost fun. It's almost fun coming back. Like, slide around a little bit.
I'm so happy back on the clay. You might even run to the baseline, Rafa style, and do a 6-foot slide. Oh, the clay. You know what I mean? You look forward to your socks getting red and your shoes getting messed up. And if you're that person who's on a hard court player revisiting the clay, you're having to have the coach feed you a few extra on the runs, run down a few drop shots. You're trying just to get acclimated again, just to get comfortable. Maybe even dig out an old a pair of used shoes to get a little bit of sliding down. Right? You got to kind of do some things to kind of help yourself get back acclimated. And then you're better on it, because I feel like, and I just want to point that out because I think that's a big thing to understand. Some players are playing this kind of an event just to get back comfortable and to kind of get ready for the clay court season. Others are like, I play on clay all the time. There's not much ramp up for me. I'm a clay court player, really. I just adapt to hard court. And the adjustment you're now making on the clay, I had to make for the hard court season. I'm coming back to my surface, and that includes your clay court aficionados like Casper Ruud, who grew up obviously in Europe, and obviously Iga, and as well as some of your South American types that are always pretty good at it. And I think that's the thing that a lot of the American players, a lot of the Canadian players, I'm sure, and I got to think the English players, all may struggle with, because of not having access to clay year-round, or having certainly not grown up on it.
And Casper Ruud being Norwegian, obviously, but grew up training at the Nadal Academy, which is a plethora of clay court surfaces to work with there, a plethora of clay court courts to work with there. A little bit about Iga Świątek, who I got to I spent a decent amount of time watching her practice, and this is, again, I'll beat this drum as long as I need to. When it's extremely valuable to go to tournaments just to see these players in person. I think we all come away with a greater appreciation for, like, truly how good and how skilled these players are when we're not looking at them from the TV angle, elevated behind the baseline, and you actually get down to court level, down to their level, and you see not only the efficiency and intentionality behind their footwork, but the way that they carry themselves in their practice, the way they put their practices together. You even get a feel for the personality, the way they interact with their coaches and their camps and the other players. I think it is one of the things that in our sport we are blessed with the ability to watch the best players in the world practice their craft. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to watch LeBron James practice anytime soon. They won't let me in the building. They
Right.
won't let me in the
Not
building.
that early.
Not that early.
Sure.
Right. So, like, but at a tennis tournament, you can camp out at the practice courts all day long and watch 40 players practice. High five them. Some of them like to talk back to the crowd. It is a we are all together as not that some of us are all tennis players with them, but we're all in this for the same reason. We all appreciate tennis. Iga
Especially
Jovic.
at a venue like Charleston, where it's you're right there.
You're right there. You would literally walk right up next to the court. You can put your elbows on the side fence and just watch them practice, watch them work. Eva was going through a lot of like footwork specific drills for maybe a good chunk of 20 minutes at one point in time, where it's like shadow swing first serve, prepping to land on the front foot, back up to get back on the to get back to a neutral stance. And really that is a different transition on hard court than it is on clay court. And then that ball, that kind of like first two ball structure looks a little bit different there as well. So it was a lot of shadow, coach, then coach feeds, she goes back, roll, come back across, slide, hit cross. So really almost like defending second serves. Very intentional, moves quite well. One big takeaway that I've always been high on her, and I tempered my expectations a little bit after watching her play, and then almost brought them back up again. The one thing that is very clear on the women's tour right now is there are delineations between levels. We have our Amazonians, right? 6 foot, big hitters, move well. That ball is a different kind of ball. That's a different kind of problem. Our super heavyweights, if you will.
100%.
Our heavyweights are a little bit different. And then you got your was it welterweight below that? Something like that. But
yeah. I think.
But really, like if you're going to get to the top of the women's game, like there is a requisite of pace that is involved. You need to be able to bring something. Like, gone are the days where you can, hack your way into this. I think Coco is the exception to this rule here, where she doesn't hit the naturally biggest ball on both wings, on the forehand side specifically, but her athleticism and competitiveness is through the charts, which then makes up for that deficiency. But she also ain't 5'5". Like, she's also 5'10".
Yeah,
right, yeah.
And her ball's bigger than you think. I would add to that. And to you're comparing her to the top 4 or 5, if I'm not mistaken.
1 or 2, yeah.
That's my point. Compared to 20 and out, Coco's ball's big. You know what I mean? And her backhand will go through you. Her forehand, if she has time, will go through you if you're 10 and out. So I think it's important to make sure the delineation you speak to is so accurate. I want to just hammer one thing home.
Please do.
And we then have to put that in context with who they're playing against. So Arena's ball is that much bigger for everyone else. Madison's ball is a tad bit bigger than Arena's. And you got to understand, this is the best ball in the world.
In the world.
So if you're talking, and that ball's a little bigger, you're like, wow. You don't understand that until you see it. And now top 20 is phenomenal. So when you see top 20 get ran, like it's no big deal, you're like, well, you have to take a second and realize, okay, hang on. Let me put in context that player's last round. My mental Rolodex of what that player has done, that I know that player's done. I've seen them, watched them, been there, got it. And they just got routined. How big is that other player's ball? And that's the delineation I think you're speaking to. That's what you have to put into the hierarchy of what you're watching, because sometimes we don't always appreciate how strong of a feat it is for that top player to defend and to play them with their given sets of skills and their multiple ways of beating you. And they don't have many weaknesses, if any at all. And so that's part of the thing that I want to just add to that, because I think that's the part that people miss when they watch. We grow into a match, Alvin, like by about the fourth or fifth game, certainly by the first set, we kind of understand the players
Yeah.
themselves, but that's
Yeah.
because they're so good at drawing us into the tennis they're playing. We forget that it's 100-mile-an-hour forehand on one side, 130-mile-an-hour serve on one side, that they just happen to be getting back, no problem. If we were courtside, we would be like, whoa, whoa, you see that ball? That's a second serve. I mean, and we would be amazed at routine shots that they handle routinely. I just wanted to add that in there because that gets lost, I think, if you don't see enough tournament play in person and you let the TV kind of dial it down a little bit, you kind of start thinking that it's normal or it's
That's
average.
that's true. The TV does kind of normalize things, and let me put some respect on Coco's forehand, because under not the most stressful of scenarios, right? She can hit it as big as the rest of them, if not damn near close. My old
100%.
office used to be across from Georgia Tech, and I remember during the men's event a couple summers ago, they
She did
used
an
Georgia
XL
Tech's
1
outdoor
year. I remember
courts
that. Yeah.
as warm up facility, because the match courts are on the other side of my office, so like a block away from Georgia Tech. And I'm looking out the window one day, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's just guys are over there, yada, yada, yada. And I see this black girl down there, and I'm like, who the hell? The girl looks pretty good. I mean, I'm on the 7th floor. I'm across the street. Look down. I'm like, she's got braids. It's like it could be Asian Muhammad for all I know. Maybe not. So I'm like, oh, I got some time. I'm on my lunch break. I'm gonna walk downstairs, walk across the street, sit down as one would. Oh, that's Coco Gauff. She's just working out, right? She's working out. This is the year she won the U.S. Open, so she was about to go on that DC, Toronto,
Right,
Cincinnati
right.
run. But I'm watching her, and I'm like, one, she's so tall, like she's so physically imposing, and that forehand that people like us we talk about under duress when she's practicing, that thing is a howitzer, right? She can tag it. She can tag it. Similar story, relatively similar time. I was at the U.S. Open during qualifying once, and I'm watching Arena Sabalenka out there hitting, and not just the ball she was hitting, she's got her footwork. Her footwork is
Very good footwork.
impeccable,
Yeah.
impeccable footwork. And that's how you get in position to hit a ball, like give yourself space to hit a ball that big. So again, my point is, when we start talking about delineations of levels, right, there is a certain weight of ball that you are going to need to be able to produce to play at the highest level of the game. And if you can kind of like, if you can't naturally hit that ball, your timing needs to be fantastic so you can take it off the rise and use some of that pace. I sat through a couple of matches on center court that day I was there. Paulo Badosa played against Kayla Day. I don't know if you know who Kayla Day is, lefty from California. And I'm sitting with my buddy Matt, and I'm like, yeah, that over time, over the course of this match, Badosa's ball is just going to be too much for Kayla. She can't. It could be enough for this to be a 4-4 kind of victory, but eventually there's going to be enough edge. And there came some points where just like Kayla was rolling, and Paolo showed like straight up former number 2 in the world pop. You let me get my feet set, I'm going to make you look bad. And you start to see these like, another one was Katie Volynets. Katie Volynets played against Dina Schneider, and they're, Katie got up 4-1, I think, early. 100% first serves made. None of them cracked 90 miles an hour. I digress. But by the time Dina got herself situated, one-way traffic. Because just like after a while, just like ball weight, over and over, heavy jabs. Eventually, you get tired and you can't keep up. But there was
And put some perspective on that, Alvin. When I was the tournament director for the girls 12 nationals, Katie Volynets won my tournament one year. I had several of the girls that age. Coco had won the clay courts one year, either that same year or year before. That it's around the same era when Volynets. I may be off by a year or so. But just to help everybody understand, these are top juniors in the country. Some went on to college and became NCAA champs or went really far. Some skipped and went straight pro. But people have to understand, these are some of the best in the country that have now matriculated to the pro tour. So just to help everybody understand, we're talking about didn't break 90, had 100%. These are darn good players, and they've been good for the last 10 years. They're not this is not chicken feed, this ain't child play, but this is some phenomenal tennis players continue to get their craft better. And to your point, and now we have delineations even
Right.
amongst that. We're not
Right.
talking about the best person you've seen at your club unless you happen to be in a club that has some top 100 players that play out of it routinely. And I just think that, again, you gotta come back to the context so that you can understand the profoundness of what you're saying, because you're right. There is a different level, but you got to appreciate you were talking about the level on top of an already very, very high level to begin with. And I just
And I
want to,
and I casually mentioned Kayla Day like she's a friend of ours. She was the best female player in the United States of America, like
right.
2017, 2018.
Like
She's
2 or 3 years
also
ago.
no joke. Yeah,
Right.
she's also no joke. So I say
Okay.
that to say, like, you gain an appreciation for what it takes, not only just to get there, but then like when you start separating 60 to 80 in the world from 50 to 30, and then 30 to getting inside the top 10, and then even within the top 10 you start looking at those women, and like you can even physically see it. Like you can physically see it, and like this one looks like an athletic specimen that's who can produce ball weight and not sacrifice court coverage to do it. That's really what we're looking at, right? That's what that comes down to. But one person that I did get a chance to watch up close and personal, I watched her hit for an hour, and then she went and played, and I watched the entirety of her match, was Belinda Bencic. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead. This is for you. This is for you, Belinda. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was not aware of your of the level of, I'm not just gonna say awesomeness, but I learned so much about Belinda Bencic watching her practice and then watching her take it onto the match court. One thing that I noticed, and then we'll kind of get into the more technical thing that I noticed. Belinda was hitting with one of the hired hitters, one of the guys that was, there's a club that provided a bunch of like really good men's players, and they were warming up the players of the tournament. She got to a point where she was working, got a little frustrated at one point, one small racket toss. And I'm like, oh, Belinda's got to play a match in about 90 minutes here. What did Belinda do from there? I did not see another
Locked
peep
in.
out of Belinda the
Right.
rest of that practice. She locked in. Yep. She locked in. She did not let a bad few minutes or a bad moment turn into a bad practice session, which turns into a bad match, and now it's a bad day and I'm going home, right? She put it in a box. She said, okay, I'm going to work through this. We're going to keep hitting. And then after about 40 minutes, that gentleman left. Her coach comes out, feeds her some balls. They're working on the things she had an issue with, and she just went to work, felt good, got off the tennis court, came back on to play her match, got the job done in 3 sets. Similar thing. Won the first set, had a little blip in the second set, came back out in the third set, and took care of business like 6-2, something like that. So this is the level of professionalism. Like, she's 29 years old. Like, she's not going to let these issues bleed and take control of the situation. She has a job to do. And that is part of being a professional tennis player, is understanding you have a job to do. And I was so impressed by her, the way she handled that, what would end up being like 20-minute kind of
Oh,
window, and
no doubt.
keeping it in that window,
Yeah.
and then walking off the court going, okay, now I'm ready to play. That's not going to bother me.
A
And
detour like that, Alvin, if you're not made of a certain metal, that could completely derail your day. If that same issue's been off and on recurring, for a few weeks to months, for a while, that could be gnawing at you in the back of your head. You know what I mean? And to your point about being professional, she has worked through it the previous 100 times that it has happened,
right.
whatever that issue has been, and but it's a mindset at that point. I remember watching her, obviously for years, but I go back to the match she beat. I think pretty sure she beat my girl uh, Anisimova in whatever the last big tournament had to been was it Miami or
Miami,
any
probably Miami.
Miami, and just took a tour. I mean, but she took Amanda's pace, no problem. She not hitting as big as Amanda, but you wouldn't know it watching the match, and she actually got Amanda jammed on her ball and then ran her. She had the perfect tactics. She has great hands and moves very well, by the way. And I feel like when you start getting these players, again, you're talking about the delineations and levels. She's not as young as she was, and she's a mom now. You have to appreciate the former gold medalist is now helping you understand this is how good I used to be, and I'm not too far off my top right now. I'm actually
She might
smarter
be
now.
better. She might be overall as a
Yeah,
tennis player.
right. She might be saying
Better.
actually a little better of a player now, even though I may be a half a step slower than I was at say 25 or 23. But make no mistake, I'm more locked in now, and I'm tactically more accurate. And I think that's the part where she's at. I know you use your formula 2-3 years after peak, blah blah blah. She might still be in her second peak, if you
Right.
will. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what that is. And only a handful of women can say that. She's certainly one of them. There's a handful of moms out there from Naomi to, to Vika Azarenka to several that have shown they could win at the highest level and beat the players in the top 5 post child.
Svitolina is another great example.
Oh, this is a great example. Going through her peak right now. She might
Right.
be in for it.
Oh,
Right?
she is better. She is better now.
She might be better now, right? So I'm to my point, and that is also otherworldly, when you really stop and think about it. So
Okay. So there was there was a funny thing that happened on the practice court as well. Do you want to hear the funny thing first? Or do you want to go through the Belinda? Okay, the funny thing. Okay, this was really funny to me. So Belinda is hitting on the court next to me. Next to her is Yastremska, her opponent, right? So, but completely normal. They're hitting at the same time because they're playing each other, in an hour. So that's
Right.
this is normal, right? So they're hitting. The person coming on after Yastremska happens to be one the lefty Dina Schneider, because Yastremska and Bencic are playing the first night match. Schneider is playing against a volley nets in the second night match. So that's how the practice schedule lined up. So Schneider is coming on the court, right? And Yastremska's finishing up on the sideline. One, do you know who's coaching Yastremska right now? I'm looking at this woman. I was like, is that Alexander Stevenson?
Oh, Alex Stevenson. I did see that in the news.
What? I'm like, I don't understand how did that happen? Like, we had Alexander Stevenson, former, top junior tennis player, made it to the Pro Tours, daughter of Julius Erving. Like, she did some things at Wimbledon 20 years ago, right? Accomplished player. I'm not trying to minimize her accomplishments as a tennis player. I'm just saying she is very American. Very American. And Yastremska is very Ukrainian. She is Ukrainian, I believe. Double check me on that one. I just want to know how they got together. Like, maybe they had the same agent. It's a very odd pairing to me at first glance. Okay, that is, the most interesting thing that happened in the next few minutes. As Schneider and her coach are coming on court, Schneider's being coached by Sasha Bayen, right? And they've been together for about a year now, I think, is maybe last summer on. That's awesome. That's awesome. They're coming to the bench. Yastremska is coming to meet Alex on the bench. Yada yada yada. Notice a little bit of awkwardness between Bayen and Yastremska, and that's because he used to coach her, and she fired him for some because coaches get fired. That happens. But it's like
all the time.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Every coach that you see with a player right now is going to get fired at some point. Like, just that's going to happen. But it's so weird. I was like explaining to my buddy Matt. I'm like, yeah, this is the Pro Tour. It's like breaking up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and then like you see him in class the next next period. Like, you're gonna see him around, and sometimes you're gonna be on the same court together. Like, they're just on tour. And I was chuckling, and I was explaining it to Matt, and he started laughing. And it's like, you would only laugh at this if you knew. Like, if you don't know, it's nothing. If you know, you chuckle. And it's funny. If a classic, if you know, this is funny. Yeah, but Belinda Bencic, so I'm watching her hit, and from a tactical standpoint, I was watching her hit backhands and something was very, something caught my eye, right? And I took a video and I sent it to you, and this was on like Tuesday of last week, and I'm still as fired up about it. Oh,
Yeah.
Tuesday this week. And I'm still as fired up on Friday
Right.
night as I was on
Right,
Tuesday
right.
about how this happened. So I think for the first time in best of 3 history, I'm going to try to actually show you this video. Okay, so what we've got here is Miss Belinda Bencic, but she's going to be hitting backhands, and I want to take note of this backhand footwork. As we go through that beginning of that clip, Tori, how would you explain what I'm seeing right about here? So backhand comes.
Yep.
She starts to prep. Typically, you'd see someone step out on the left leg, step in on the right leg, close the stance off, smack this ball.
Yep.
What is Miss Bencic doing here that is breaking my brain?
Alvin, looking at it, and I've looked at this clip numerous times since you shared it with me, there are several things that come right to me, but the first thing that comes to me, besides having a phenomenal timing and open stance backhand, is you see even right there how she just kind of sets the racket. I would be willing to bet you a C note that she is as ambi or closet lefty as they come, because she's setting that racket like it's a left-handed forehand. And then she goes, you notice right here, she's already setting the racket. Notice her left foot hasn't moved yet. She's moving technically her inside foot, right, is going to go forward here. You can go roll the clip. Then she steps out left. She's got the steps completely flipped. But that backhand, as you would say, is clean as Christmas. That thing comes through all day long, all day strong. Now, you watch the next ball. She actually does something similar on this side, but she hits it more classic. Outside foot moves, good shoulder rotation, but it's still pretty clean on both sides open stance. The next I think the backhand's coming up next. There's another one. And she actually loads and powers through this thing. It's as if it's a lefty forehand with a little bit of help of the right hand. That's what I see. I don't see the classic front shoulder lean, right knee forward bend. And Alvin, quite frankly, she might get more pop and more depth off at open stance, and certainly gets more length off of it, and and is easier to recover off of it because of not having her the step in right foot and the left foot swivel. So in some ways, it's actually more efficient. And if you're countering a lot off that ball, that's actually smarter to do, because if you don't hit it 100 miles an hour or 90 plus, you're probably better off going open stance to counter if you're not. And I say that to say that's where your delineations come in. Maybe I'm so good at defending the big backhands because I don't have one, but I'm better with my footwork. So when I can use your pace, and guess what? My footwork's better than yours. So when you hit 90 miles an hour to me plus on a ground stroke, I can redirect you better. That clip explains how she was so effective against Anisimova.
Yep, taking
Who hits
pace.
90-mile-an-hour ground strokes, I might add.
Right, and she has there's no leakage on that backhand side. Like, it is extremely efficient.
Zero power lost, zero energy dissipation. She literally, Alvin, she loaded left foot forward and hit a backhand.
It's my brain's still broken, Tori. It's still broken. I've watched that clip probably 50 times and I still don't understand what I'm looking at.
It's phenomenal. And when you see people do things like that are a little bit like, wow, like that's, and we say not normal, right? There was a guy years ago when I was on the tour with some players, and his name was Ilya Bazoliak, and Ilya had a one-handed backhand and a two-handed forehand. And when you saw this guy's two-handed forehand, it was an absolute blitzkrieg. I mean, the ball, you wondered how a person hit a ball that big with two hands. And then you saw him with the one-hander. You're like, really? One-hander? I got to see this one-hander. After seeing that two-handed backhand, the one-hander was better than Dimitrov's. I mean, it was just, I may be giving a little extra, but my point is that clean. Off the return, that clean. Ili was, I don't know if he's some either Serbian or Croatian, I can't remember, but he was just so pure off the one-hander. And again, guys hovering between 150 and 75 in the world. Of course it's clean. I mean, you
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
have a one-handed backhand if it was trash. So I say it to say, when you saw, you're like, but every time you watched him, you wanted to just see what he would do. Well, he had it. It was good as you thought it was, and maybe better. And at that point, you just had to accept it. It was, and the fact that our brains couldn't get our head around it, I mean, is beside the point. The fact is they can do it. And it just shows you how when people hit a tennis ball that clean and effortless, it's something to behold. I mean, it's a marvel of timing.
It's only effortless. It only looks effortless because they've spent so much time putting so much effort into hitting it that well. So Belinda Bencic from Alvin at best of 3 directly to you. I am now aware. I am here with
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Let's roll. I'm on your side. Before we get out of here, we got some news, I think it was yesterday or today, about the Iga Świątek coaching situation. I think this note came to no one's surprise. Francisco Roig is going to be her coach, formerly a part of the Rafa Nadal camp for the whole run, from Uncle Tony to Moya. He was there for all of it. She's trading out of Nadal Academy, I guess, for the duration of the clay court season. That's where she'll be home basing, working with him. A video came out today with the two of them, along with Rafa, on court working with Iga. So this is like fantasy tennis come true, right? Iga finally is under the tutelage of her idol. Yada yada yada. It's fantastic. But I want to talk about like some of the, maybe compare and contrast like why this might work better for a better partnership from a Roig standpoint, because he was most recently working with Emma Raducanu and they butted heads over let's say game style differences. He
Right.
wanted her to add more shape and spin to her game. She wants to be effectively Amanda Anisimova and try to go through people. They didn't see eye to eye, so no, they were no longer with each other. Now Roig has a student who is open to the Spanish ways of tennis, obviously idolized Rafa coming up, and now they're all together. What might this look like from a coaching and Iga perspective? What kind of changes do you see forthcoming here?
Number one, I don't know if it's been 4 or 5. I think it's been 5. She's won 5 French Opens, so we're not talking about, I think, 4?
I think it's 4. I think 4
4
Frenches,
in
1
French,
US,
a
1
US and a Wimbledon now, right?
and a
So
Wimbledon. Yeah, I
it's 6 total? 7, 6 total.
think it's 6 total.
6 total. 4, to my point.
Yep,
Minimum 4,
a
potentially more.
lot.
I think for a lot. On clay is my point. So number 1, she's very good at on clay and is already very proven, very mastered on the surface. Number 2, Roig is phenomenal coach. We can only see good things coming here, right? She's at a point where she's, you know, sunset her current coach for whatever reasons and moving forward and needs that new perspective, and you couldn't find a better perspective. I'll be honest, I think it should last past the clay court season just to get the rest of the sauce. You know what I mean? You can't get a good sauce, if you just heat and serve. You got to let that marinate for a little while and let
Mm-hmm.
that flavor, the little spices really get in there all the way so you can really get the full flavor. And I feel like that's what needs to happen. But I feel like you've got a lot right going already. You simply need to add a little bit of bit of a nuance and maybe just a fresh perspective on when to use the spin. I am particularly impressed with not only her seeking out this type of help at this time, great timing. I'm also liking Roy as the coach. He's got a little something to prove, maybe a little chip on the shoulder from the Emirata kind of situation. Let's face it, coaches get very personal with this kind of thing. And a player who's looking to make some changes, who's obviously of Swiatek's caliber, is is a very solid piece of clay to work with, who's already, again, mastered, knows what she's doing. So it could be positioning nuances. It could be when to go for certain things. Iga's not one to throw in a lot of changeups, and she tends to hit one speed, one way. And I don't think she's as good as she is. She's not as phenomenal on the run, which to me tells me that he's going to do a lot more to keep her in that very good space where she's effective and not hit herself out of the coverage area or get herself court-wise out of her coverage area, which she can do if she starts being overly aggressive. And I think that's a big thing for her. I think changing up her return stances is a big thing. I think her adding in the occasional drop shot and the occasional slice is good for her. Otherwise, players get very immune to her many daggers over time because they, of course, have seen it, and they've only seen that for a long time. So I like all of it, Alvin. I really do. I'm worried for the other top four, or the rest of the top four,
Oh,
because
you're that bullish on it, huh?
for sure, because
Okay.
she's that good on clay, and she's better than they are on clay anyway most days of the week. And she's got a little bit of a chip on her shoulder, and they, in my opinion, I still say that match that Arena beat her last year in the semis was one of the best clay court matches for the women I've seen in a long time. And that was, I mean, it was absolute knockdown, drag out tennis. And I really feel like that was something that, um, save for, save for, her playing Arena, she could have very well had played Coco and given and maybe who knows what will happen if Coco obviously plays Iga very, very well herself. So, but my point is save for Arena that day, she would have been in that final one more time. And I think that's very safe to say. So I'm just trying to help people understand she wasn't that far off from before. So a little nuance, a little better, a little more serve, and just some understanding of a few things with a fresh perspective. She, if her bad French is a semi, and her top is 4 slams,
Right.
I like her chances.
That's good. That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point.
With the fresh
worst,
perspective, with Rafa's coach, I like her chances, Alan. Just saying.
so you weren't so high on Iga. You're not currently high on Iga in general. You're saying
Correct.
specifically this particular pairing going into the clay court season.
Tournament.
Yes.
But
yes.
If done right,
it helps her going forward.
It helps her going forward on the hard court, because people forget it took Rafa 7-8 years to get to the second week of the U.S. Open. When he did, I think he won the thing 8-9 years later, but and at that point he added several U.S. Opens to his credit. But I say that to say there was a while, at least 5 years, I know, where he wasn't making it past the second week in the U.S. Open after having won the French 4 or 5 times. So again, you let him get comfortable on that stuff, let him understand his patterns better, let him understand how point creation, point development on a clay court now transitions to the hard court. Rafa was darn unbeatable for 6% of 10 years on the hard court after he really got good at it. And that's with one Roger Federer and one Novak Djokovic still always contesting for slams, not to mention the occasional Wawrinka, Cilic, Murray of things. So
Del
I say that to say, who's that?
Delpo as well.
Right. Some points. You got even the other slam winners were world class. So I like Francisco in this space. I just got to say this one thing for the Emma Raducanu fans out there. I really hope she gets the type of coach that she will allow to help her. I feel like since her run at the Open 5-6 years ago, now 7 years ago, I guess it was now, I feel like she's still chasing a vision of herself that isn't there. She's trying to play tennis that she thinks that the tennis, I think that statement that she didn't understand what Roy was saying tells me she doesn't understand herself, her skill set, and she's still chasing a vision of herself of that tournament back in the day. And the sun, the moon, the stars were just aligned for that tournament. And it hadn't happened since, and no, it may not happen again, but at least you can put yourself back give yourself your best chance to win. She's not going to grow 6 to 8 inches. She's not going to get those kind of limbs and develop that kind of ball striking, but she does so many things well. Why would you not change it up? Why would you not add shape, add slice, take on the rise, and use the bevy of your skills? Why would you just limit yourself to going to being a go-through player when you're not a go-through player physique and ball speed? You just,
It's yeah.
you can't do it.
I sympathize with her a little bit. Like on tangential note, I would like to someday do a 30 for 30 style version on the what happened at the 2021 U.S. Open. That was like I've looked at that draw. The weird things that happened,
The way it fell.
the way it fell for
Yeah.
a qualifier
Right.
and
The main. Yeah.
an unproven young lefty from Canada to
Sure.
also make the final in the same year.
Right. On the other side of the draw. You're right. It's again, sun, moon, and stars.
Maybe right before the US Open this year. We'll go down memory lane and actually
I think
like
that'd be a good one.
but the thing is like but to that point though, like you have to be somewhat self-aware, but professional athletes they don't make money off being self-aware, right? They
Right.
need to be
They're notoriously not self-aware.
exactly, and that's you kind of have to be. You kind of have to be, right? They always say like defensive backs have a very very short-term memory, right? You need to get on with it. You need to see the world in a different way. Emma has the benefit of being able to remember the best version of herself, but also she seems to be caught between like she has a lack of game style clarity right now, right? There's what she wants to be, which is I won this Grand Slam and I want to play like the Arena Sabalenkas of the world. I want to play big, right? But she does not possess the tools or the size to do that. And now we are mixed in a bit of game style. She's still a very, very good tennis player. Like I would say on her best day, the ideal version of Emma Raducanu is probably floating somewhere between 15 and 20 in the world, potentially pushing top 10, like maybe. And that's a good job. That's a great job. But she sees her, but you got to do that in your own way. You can't do that trying to be someone else.
Someone you're not. She needs to find Martina Hingis and show up at her doorstep with bags packed, bucket of balls, and a check in hand and say please.
Interesting.
Because that is the closest thing to Grand Slam champ multiple times at that level, at that package, at that. And I think she needs Martina's vision, or Melanie Molitor's, whoever. She needs that level. Well, maybe Hingis' mom. Maybe I sure hope she's still with us. But I say it to say somebody at that level, to see it, to help her understand where she needs to be, how to put these things together. Because if you're going to take away time with that package and those limbs, you're not going to do it the conventional way. And I think what she's seeing, me personally, she's seeing the top of the game do it. So therefore, I need to do it. Not necessarily what I want to do, but this is what I need to do to be that good.
I can do.
If you're having me roll balls, they're not rolling balls, and that's how I'm getting beat. And it's a very easy thing to understand. And perhaps Roy and being his many years on the Spanish clay, and much like our former head of player development, Jose Higueras, it's gonna you're gonna be hard pressed to tell him that he's wrong. You're gonna be hard pressed to tell him, look, I just coached this way for 20 years. It got 22 slams. Maybe someone else that can teach 22 slams, and it's very hard to kind of get out of the dogmas that we understand, that we know very well. Maybe Martina can help her to understand the spin, the drive, when to attack, when to, old school Muhammad Ali, right? Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. She's got to be able to move like that and be very, very dangerous on the wings. Handle the middle of the court well, but not depend on pace, absorb pace well. There's just certain types of players that have done it very well. To me, find the player that last did it the best with that kind of game, and man, try to get them in your camp. But to me, it's a good move for Roig to be gone, and quite frankly, great move for Iga. She understands spin. Maybe I could see us seeing a heavier spin. The one note that'll be a little different is the women take the ball on the rise very, very well, so the heavy ball won't be as big of a thing. So if they're gonna add some spin and some variety, it's gonna have to be very nuanced. It can't be Can't give the Amazonians more time. Can't give them more height because all of them are 6 feet plus, so they're gonna have.
It's got to be deep.
But I think
It's got to
Rory's
be
gonna
deep.
understand when to do it, when to drive, when to go heavy, and really kind of and when to go behind people and whatnot. I think that's gonna be one of his things, is to understand how to really do a really good job of point construction. And in my opinion, Alvin, to be very honest with you, I think she struggles with points with point construction. She attacks very well. She hits targets very well. She's very fast, but I don't think she's not she's not a master at point construction past ball 3, 4, 5. For ball 1 and 2, she puts you on your heels. She calls up a short ball. She zigzags you. She puts you over the swing and volley. If all points are gonna be between ball 1 and ball 4 on her side, Iga Świątek is still your world number 1 because she will finish you in 3 or 4 shots. But if not, point construction, if you can weather the first 3 or hit a first serve or defend / not give her the step-up ball in the return, it's a very different story. So to me, this is a very needed part of her game, which is why she's always seemed so thin to me with those kind of players that can hit through her, because she doesn't get that many looks and can't attack them like she would somebody else.
Let me add on to that, because you bring up a really good point about point construction, and you say you feel that's not her strong suit. I think it is a direct reflection of how little tennis she self-admittedly watches. She is not
That's a great
from
point.
that standpoint, Iga is a self-admitted not a student of the game. She says, I don't watch matches. I let my coaches handle that. And that puts her in the position of someone of a computer. Input, someone gives me the input, I give the output. Like, tell me what to do, I go do it. But as she said in her most recent press conference coming out of, I believe it was Miami, about being lost during matches, things going wrong, she doesn't know what to do.
Right.
She's not very good at thinking for herself on the tennis court. I think
And that problem solving is huge. It's a huge miss.
it's huge when plan A doesn't go well or plan B doesn't go well. You can't always, yes, there's coaching allowed, but there's only so much time. You need to be able to put some of that stuff together on your own. Take the menu of options and realize, okay, this is the one that I actually need to implement, and I need to start by hitting this ball, because 3 balls from now I want this ball. And that is as great of a tennis player as she is. And I'll be the first to raise my hand and say, if you are selling your Iga Świątek stock right now, give it to me. Give it to me. I got plenty of coins back here. I'll take as much of it as I can get. 6-time Grand Slam winner, 24 years old. I'm not done with her quite yet. But
sure.
I think she would serve herself well. Her camp would be doing her a service, but getting that woman to watch more tennis and almost film room session style, like, let's watch
100%.
it together.
Watch more, problem solve more, get her to walk through the scenarios of what it is. And maybe it's a superstition. Maybe she never had to. And that's the other thing people don't understand. You get to a point, Alvin, you've been so good at a certain thing and it's working, you kind of think those things you've done are
Sure.
just what you do, right? And you know, again, it becomes part of your dogma. It becomes part of your whole belief system. So at some point, you got to understand that you need to change and add to that, because at some point you can't keep doing that, especially when it's proven that it isn't going to continue to work or be successful going forward. So I again, great choice for her. Great choice for Roy. I just feel like so much of it is just going to be a good fit there. And if I hear 5 words a day over the course of 2 weeks from Rafa, those are gonna be 5 nuggets of wisdom that I'm on clay. I'm probably going to remember those 5 words. I'm saying 5 words, those 5 sentences that will probably have a very profound effect on my tennis overall. You know what I mean? And I would say the same thing with, if I heard that from Novak, or if I heard that from Roger or someone else, the way they can understand it so simply and yet make the complex be so simple to understand. I mean, I hear nuggets on Instagram here and there from some of these players, and I'm like, God, that's gold. I
Yeah.
hope
Yeah.
the person listening understands. I teach it every day. You know what I mean? And I've been teaching for 30 years and played a fair bit myself. To hear them put it that simply, they cut through all the fluff and just said, "Bam, here it is," and you're like, "Whoa."
I saw a video of a short, not even a video, a short of Andy Murray giving 3 tips on the return to serve, and he was like, obviously one was like nail the split step, 2 was short take back, and the third one was the golden one, is like, as you make contact through the shot, the level of your head does not move.
Yeah.
Can't come up. Like after you split and you go, do not come up. You have to keep your head level through the return. And it's like, yeah, that's a visual I can get down with. And it's so simple. It's so simple. And you start thinking about his return. It's like, yeah, just stay at one level. Stay at one level. Down and through, baby.
Great
Down and
return.
through. Yeah, they're good. These guys are good. Well, TH, that was fun. We will come back. What do we have in front of us here on the tour? We've got Stuttgart, I believe, is this coming week. If not, it's the week after. We definitely have Monte Carlo, our favorite. Red clay, blue sea. It's Monte Carlo time, baby. So we've got all the big bangers are in that one, save for Novak and I think Taylor and Jack Draper. But we've got Sinner and Alcaraz in that one. Arthur Fils. It's fun. We're right back at it again. So we can put a pin in it there.
Yep.
It's best of three. I'm Alvin. That's Tori. We are out.